should be live.
Let's see. Let's double check.
You never know.
I know, right? Oh, I see it.
Yay!
Well, I see that you're live streaming. How do I go see actually what you're live streaming? This is just, oh, here we go. Yay!
Yay! Well, happy day.
Happy day.
Hello.
All right.
How are you?
I'm gonna get out of that so I'm not hearing myself speak 10 seconds ago. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's Friday, so, you know, ready to not have to work for 3 days. It's a long weekend here in America.
Oh, lucky you. We don't have that.
Yeah, we have Labor Day is on Monday, so a lot of people have Monday off. But, yeah, so pretty excited about that. Other than that, I'm just trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing with my book here. I kind of had an idea for what I wanted to have for the All Is Lost portion of my novel.
Yes.
But since I have two main characters, I feel like I have to have two All Is Lost portions. And so it's kind of weird because, like, the All Is Lost is, you know, it's a romance novel, so the All Is Lost is them being separated. So I'm just trying to figure out how that's all going to work.
Exactly how you need to, I think that's the problem when you've got, like, multiple POV characters and they've all got their own story. How do you do the All Is Lost and make it relevant to everybody, but then also to each, to personally to each of themselves?
Right, and it's also kind of weird because they're both they're basically being under arrest by the, like, Werewolf High Council or whatever. So they're being taken to these individual hotels / prison cells, and so they're having their own, like, dark night of the soul moment, but it's gonna be very similar for both of them. So I might just have to, like, gloss over some of that and kind of, because at this point, like, they've clearly decided that the other's worth fighting for, which is usually, like, the epiphany moment is, like, that they're worth fighting for. So maybe I'll just gloss over that and get to the finale. Wait until I get beta reader feedback.
One of them,
say what?
Is one of them like the main character? Because I remember reading in Save the Cat that all of them obviously are the main characters, but one of them should be the main character.
Yes, the female protagonist is the main character, if you will. So I think I have a good moment from, actually I have a pretty good, let me see if I can bring up this quote that I think is kind of consistent with, like, a All Is Lost or a Dark Night of the Soul kind of moment. But I was writing this, and actually I wrote this a little while back, but I was, like, rereading it to see if I could use it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I really like that. So let me see if I can find it here. But basically she's like, they basically kick down the door to take her away, and she's kind of struggled with the fact that, like, she didn't obviously know werewolves exist until recently, and then she finds herself in love with one of them who is, you know, who appears to be 20 years her junior, but is actually 80 years her senior, and then, you know, all this other stuff, and then she she basically, like, let's see, where is the line? But basically she has this, like, moment where she's like, okay, here it is. So they basically just broke in, and one of the other characters says, Ian is in serious trouble for telling you what he is. You are both going to stand trial before the Werewolf High Council. For a moment. Rude. Rude. I'm talking here. Chloe. Yeah, now they know you. I edit all this out in my videos, huh?
Not today.
Not today. Don't have the luxury. But anyway, for a moment, Heather was so dumbfounded by how stupid her life was beginning to sound that she didn't feel the stinging of the broken glass in her palm.
I like that line. That's good. I love
Thank
your
you.
excerpts. I love it when you read out your excerpts.
Oh, thank you. I've been meaning to do that more, but I haven't done a lot of like what I'm writing now, vlogs, in a little while. So I should probably get back into that because those seem to be a big hit. But yeah, so what are you going to be working on today?
I need to finish my rewrites for Nephilim, which I do on Sunday.
Are you sending them somewhere on Sunday? Or?
Not on Sunday. I just wanted it to be done by Sunday because in September I wanted to start working on my outline for my NaNoWriMo novel. And I'm going to like proper outline it. So I've got one chapter and a bit left to do for Nephilim, physically rewriting it before I have to go through and quick edit it, and then hopefully then send it off to beta once more for the rest of this year. So it's just, I'm on the bit that really annoys me, which is just after the climax.
Oh, okay. Sort of, so like kind of the epilogue / wrap up.
Yeah, that little bit that just comes just before the resolution, sort of like, how do I make it not sound dumb and anticlimactic and full of exposition? And
that's a struggle.
It's a pain because you need to explain things, but then you can't explain it too much, which I have been doing.
I was reading
explaining enough? I don't know.
And that's so like the other thing too is like there's the whole, do you completely tie up all loose ends with a nice bow, or do you like leave it open-ended, or like, you know, those kinds of things too. Like you need to figure out like what you want to do with that, because I'm not gonna say which novel series this is because it was quite popular and I don't want to spoil it, but there was one series that I finally finished recently where basically at the very end, like all of the bad guys, including like the good guys, like the king, who's really not a good guy, you know, ends up dying in this like crazy raid that happens, and like all of the good people live and all of the bad people die, and then like the epilogue is just like, well, hey, I guess now we can, you know, do that major political overhaul we were thinking about doing without any consequences because no one is here to say no, and it's going to be a bunch of 18-year-olds ruling this country now. And I was like, well, you know, I like on the one hand that it tied everything up, but I also am kind of like, I feel like it was a little bit too tidy. When you first
started explaining it, like everyone died in a raid, I was like, oh, that sounds so cool. And then no, it's just easy telling. I was just like,
you would think, sort of, but like it just seemed like it came out of nowhere. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say the author didn't do anything to like, you know, build up that this might happen. Like there are rebels the whole way through. Like it's not like the rebels weren't there, but there's this like moment where they're basically going to have some big announcement or something, and then there was a big raid, and then I think the other thing that kind of didn't really sit with me well was that the main character didn't really have much to do in the final raid. Like she basically, she had one thing that she did to save one character, but other than that, she was just being schlepped around by guards and then put into a safe room and just like locked up there and with her own thoughts, and she didn't really like, you know, do anything, which I mean, I would be surprised if she did. She had, you know, if she consistently did not do very much throughout the rest of the series. But yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I'm going to be there myself pretty shortly here. So, but you pretty much have already like a full manuscript. You're just kind of revising it now, right?
This is draft 6. So I've been revising this since 2015. So
oh my god,
it's changed. This is the second major rewrite. So this is the second time. Not the basic plot. The basic plot has stayed the same, but sort of like all of the plot on top and all of the subplots have changed, and the ending has changed, and it's been a big one. So hopefully the story is sort of the right story I'm telling now, for me to not have to then majorly rewrite it again for a third time.
Right.
And then I can just focus on cutting words down and streamlining character arcs and plot points and all of this.
Gotcha. Well, that sounds like hell.
It is.
That sounds horrible.
Writing is hell.
But yeah, at least you're nearing the end. I mean, if all you need is a weekend, that's pretty close to the end. It's like, you know, the level where you're like, oh, it's close enough. I'm just gonna, you know, phone it in. But so you do gotta push. But man, I know that after NaNoWriMo last year, I tried doing a bunch of revisions like of that novel right away. I got up to like revision 5 or 6 like right away. And let me tell you, by the time I hit that point, I was just like, no. F the story. I'm not going to touch it for a little while. And then it turned out to be a good thing, because then I was able to be like, okay, actually, there are some major issues with this story that now I know how to fix because I let it sit.
Yeah, so. I think the one thing with revisions is when you look at it too much and have to try and figure out what to do and what's not working, you do get sick and tired of it. And taking that break, sort of like you forget everything that you've done, and you forget how, you know, you forget the bad bits, and then you can sort of read it with fresh eyes and be like, oh, that's what was wrong with it. I didn't pick up on that before, because your mind knows you've already written, so it sort of just skips over the fact it's a problem.
Right. But also, like, you forget all the good stuff too. So like as you're rereading it, it's almost like exciting, because you're like, oh, like that was a really cool description I wrote, or like, wow, that's a really good dialogue, or that's a really cool idea, and like you're re-inspired by yourself, which is, you know, pretty cool when you're like, oh my gosh,
it's not as bad as I thought it was. Yay.
Yeah. This might actually have potential. I don't know. We'll see about my stuff. I'm sure your stuff is great.
Your stuff is great as well. Come on now.
Oh, thank you.
We're both fabulous. Why
not? Of course. So what did you want to do for this writing session? Did you want to do like sprints? I mean, that's not really good for revision so much, but it might be nice to like do some revising and then have like a break kind of thing. I don't know. What you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I've just done my 30K in 3 days, where I had to
I saw that
sprint through writing everything down. So I'm sort of, because it's new things I'm currently having to put into it at the end. It's not me rewriting what I've already written. It's a brand new scene and a brand new sort of. It's not me rewriting. It's just me writing. So, you know, if the quality is bad, but it's better for me to get the words down during a sprint, so it's actually done, and then I'll worry about the quality later. So it's actually done. That's what I'm looking forward to, it being done again for the 6th
time. Well, hopefully, you know, 6th time is the charm.
Hopefully.
But yeah, I think I think what you said is a good thing. I think the main thing is that, you know, when it comes to the dark night of the soul, and for those people that are maybe watching this later or watching right now and are familiar with Save with the Cat, is basically the moment after when your character has faced their like greatest, I would say, loss. So like either a mentor dies, or like a relationship temporarily ends, or something that they had is lost. And so it's almost like this secondary debate period wherein you can, your character is exploring like, okay, so I went through this journey and I had my life turned completely upside down because this thing happened to me. And now I'm suddenly feeling this loss, and I can't really go back to my old ways and my old life. So what do I do? And the end goal of that is supposed to be that they're going to learn something about themselves, and then they're going to choose to push towards the ending of the book.
Yeah.
So I think in this case, what I'll do is I'll do it with just the main character. Because I think at this point, the other character the male protagonist has already basically decided, like, she's it. I'm gonna fight for her. So she needs to kind of figure out, like, you know, she's a human who is suddenly sucked into this world. Like, does she even want to be in this world anymore? Like, everything's, you know, she has a family. Like, she can't just like up and change and all this other kind of stuff. So maybe that's what I'll work on.
Yeah, it's her. She's the one that needs to make, you know, the decision to change her life or not to change her life. So, and if you feel that and if you know afterwards you think that maybe you want a little bit hint of the other character in it, or what, you know, they're going through, then you can always add that in afterwards as well.
This ending is going to be kind of thrown together, I think. I have a basic idea of how I want it to go down, but my main goal for this story right now is to just finish the bare bones and like a minor edit, and then like you were talking about earlier, just kind of getting it to a point where it's mostly cohesive and then just sitting on it. And then I'm going to start working on my nano outline as well. Though this November is already turning out to be like, November is a bad month for me. I don't know about you, but November is just not a good month for me.
Yes, well, no months are good for me.
Well, yeah, you have.
Not 100% true. Got 4 kids at home, so I'm sort of like every weekday for like the entire year is hectic.
Yes.
So I'll figure it out. I usually just write in the evenings when the kids are in bed.
That's true.
And I'm not going to get disturbed.
The other thing too is like understanding that you know, a lot of the stuff that's happening for me in November is like fun stuff, like my birthday, Thanksgiving, going to like sporting events with friends and family and loved ones. So having the perspective of being like, okay, so I didn't meet 50,000 words. I got some work done, and I had an amazing November with my family and friends. So that's a win.
I think that's, people always forget that about NaNoWriMo. They sort of have this 50,000 word goal in mind, and if they don't get 50,000 words,
right,
they're failed.
Right.
But you know, if you've done some work, that's still more work than you would have done without NaNoWriMo. So it's still a win.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Let me get my title set up here. Hold on. And then we'll maybe get a sprint going. How long do you want to sprint for?
I honestly don't mind. I'm okay with any number of time length worth. I'm okay with any length.
Well, I think usually it's a good idea to start with something like 10 minutes. Something real quick, just to kind of like, it usually gets your first 100 or 2 words out there, so you kind of have an idea of what's going on, and then you can actually hunker down for a longer sprint. So, all right, you ready?
Good. They're ready to go. Where am I? Let me. That's my outline. My outline. This is what I want to write about in this scene. Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's while I was trying to figure out how to even do this stream. I was doing that while I was getting my Scrivener set up and all that kind of stuff while I was trying to figure out how the heck to get this thing going. All right, 3, 2, 1, go.
Let's go. Go on then.
Your kisses. Kisses, pretty lady. Oh,
Oh,
well done.
10 minutes. That went by fast.
I know. How'd you do?
I don't know where I started. So
Oh, wow. I did actually really well for me. I got 265 words.
Oh, that's good.
That's pretty darn good for 10 minutes. So were you actually writing, or were you like revising?
Actually writing. So I've sort of made a sort of like outline of the things I want to cover, I suppose, in the rest of the scene and the little bits we need to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm just going in and filling in between. So like someone that gets threatened and they're not happy with the threat, so just fill in the gaps in between all of those and sort of make it read like an actual story and not just notes that I've written on a page. I think I did 258 words.
Nice. Nice. Oh, we're actually pretty close. Wow.
Yeah.
We must write about the same amount of speed.
If I was just writing, I could probably get more words in if I was like writing without care of what it was I wrote or what it sounded like.
Right.
But I'm caring what I write at the moment, so I'm being a little bit more careful with sort of the sentences and the terms and the words I want to use.
Yes, having that perspective really is kind of a very helpful tool when that is kind of the one benefit of having it be your 6th draft, right? Like you actually have you've already gone through everything so many times that you know what you want to do, and you know exactly how you want to end it. I'm not being very eloquent right now.
We don't need to be eloquent. We're writers.
Yeah.
Mumble, and that's how we communicate. We mumble.
Yeah. So did you want to share anything from what you wrote, a sentence or
a
little blurb, or you don't have to if you don't want to?
Let me see. What's my favorite line that I wrote? That's not a spoiler. Okay. So for context, the protagonists, who they're half angel, so they're Nephilim, they're half angel, half human. They've just defeated the bad guy, but the rest of the angels don't like the Nephilim for reasons, and they've sort of assumed that the Nephilim have been helping the bad guy and completely ignoring the fact that they're the ones that stopped him. And then their mentor, who's just like a sensitive human who can sort of like see the angels,
Okay.
is not very happy with the fact that the angels are trying to get his kids in trouble.
Oh,
so
yeah.
So he's sort of like, don't you dare at my kids. Do not make me raise my hand against you, Adil, Mac warned, his hands curling into fists. I will do so without hesitation.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
That's my best line. I like that.
Yeah, that's really good. Very succinct. You know exactly. You can tell a lot about. That's a nice thing about writing, is sometimes even something so seemingly short can convey so much about a character. And I think since you said that he was a father, right? Like, I think a lot of readers can also relate to the fact that, like, if someone's gonna mess with your kid, like, you know, you're gonna defend your kid, no hesitation.
That's good. I think that's the key when you're writing characters is, oh, that's a child crying. Let me finish quickly.
Right.
You can have these lines. Yeah, you can have these lines, and even without any dialogue tags, you sort of know who they belong to. Just based on.
That's something I've been trying really hard to do with this romance novel, is trying to cut out as much of the, like, he said, she said, like, descriptive, like, who actually spoke, and just having it be just the dialogue, because the dialogue hopefully is strong enough, and you know the characters well enough that you can figure out who's actually speaking without having to be told. The only difference is, like, if there's more than two people. If it's just two people, it's pretty easy to do that. But if there's like three people, you kind of have to be like, this person said it.
Right, give me 2 seconds to sort this child out. I'll be right back.
Sounds good. In the meantime, I see we have a couple people in the chat. How are you all doing? Are you writing with us? Some new people. Yeah, Tilly, I definitely have a bit of RBF. I hope it looks like I'm concentrating and not that I'm angry. Hey, oh my gosh, I love D&D. Oh my gosh. I haven't played in so long. My DM moved across the country, so sad.
No, she is lost her dummy. She has it now. Hopefully she'll be quiet.
Well, I don't know if you all can hear, but my doggo has been whining this whole time. So whoopsie daisy. She's a nutter, that one. I guess so. Like, the only thing I would share, so one of the main, I guess, characteristics of the main character, Heather, is that her character arc is basically learning to accept herself and stopping so hard on herself. So I think this is something that a lot of people can relate to, especially moms, but feeling like you don't have enough time to get it all done, negative self-talk, and just like feeling inadequate in all aspects of your life. I am not a mom other than a dog mom, but I have a very close relationship with my mom, and just, you know, whenever I tell her she did a good job, she's always like, you know, well, I'm really glad you said that, because, like, sometimes it feels like I'm not doing a good job. And in many ways, this character is based off of my mom. So, like, I felt like that was something that was very relatable, and also very, like, something, you know, a lot of people are going through something similar. So the way that the mechanic that I use for it in the book is that her inner critic actually has its own voice. And
wow, that's interesting. I like that.
Right. So she will actually have, like, mental sparring matches with her inner critic, and I distinguish between the two by having the inner critic is bold and then her thoughts are just in italics, whereas her inner critics are bold and italics, which I think in many ways kind of also symbolizes the fact that sometimes the inner critic is seemingly overwhelming and is more bold, and like it seems like it makes it almost seem like it's harder to get away from it. But in this, I kind of had an epiphany while I was writing this scene. I was like, what better way, you know, because part of her character arc is that she's going to eventually overcome this inner critic and realize, like, you know what, like, I am a good mother. I am a good, you know, romantic partner. I'm a good friend. I'm a good business partner. Like, I am okay just the way that I am, and that people love her just the way that she is. And so I thought, what better way for her to like really overcome this is to just really just nail that inner critic to the floor and just be like, no, you're not going to take over my life. And, you know, yes, you're going to keep pointing out these things that I should feel guilty about, but you know what? No, like, I'm not going to let you control me anymore. And so I started writing the beginning of the dialogue where her inner critic is basically going through all of the like, you know, look where you are. You're trapped in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by strangers. No, wait, werewolves. You're about to be put on trial for something that, at worst, you heard about from someone who is supposed to love you. Ian does love me, and your hand is killing you. Heather gingerly flexed her hand, sucking in air when pain radiated through her forearm. Tell me something I don't know. So that's just a little like this inner critic and her are just, and then I know I deal with this a lot where like sometimes it does feel like my own self-conscious thoughts seem like a different person within me because, you know, I was reading somewhere like you would never speak to someone else the way you speak to yourself.
Yes,
you know?
I've heard that. What would you say if, you know, this was your best friend?
Right.
Would you say this to your best friend? Like, never. But no, I think the really good thing is sort of like you can give, you know, her inner critic its own personality, and you could sort of see it in the way that you just wrote it. The inner critic sort of has a sort of different way of speaking. It has a different style and a different sort of manner to them than Heather does, and I think that's really great and a really great distinction to have.
Thank you.
Because
it's something I've been.
Everybody can relate to that. Absolutely everybody. And I think most people sort of need to stop and learn to go, you know what? You are your own best friend.
Yes.
Basically, no one knows you better than you know yourself, and you know,
give yourself some love.
You know, enough is enough, and that's a really good sort of like the darkest days and sort of picking yourself back up. The more character and emotion you can put into those moments is what's going to sort of make the reader root for your character more than if there was that sort of lack of relatability and emotion coming from the book.
Right. The other nice kind of thing about it is that, you know, in our world, we have like movies about vampires, werewolves, like, so like, you know, it's, and in this world, the same thing exists. So she understands like what a werewolf is based on like fiction and movies and stuff like that. So like the inner critic also kind of has a good mechanic wherein it points out the absurdity, right? Like, you know, this thing was in movies and now like, you know, he's telling you that he is this thing. Are you insane? Like, you know, so that she's not completely just like, oh yes, like you're a werewolf. No big deal, you know. Everything's fine.
She's not going to be Bella.
It's totally normal conversation.
She's not going to be Bella about it though.
Yeah. All right. Well, did you want to do another sprint?
Yeah, we'll go for one. See if I can
let's double the time. Let's do 20 minutes because I was starting to get in the groove there.
That always happens. You start to get in the groove and then the bell goes.
I know.
Like, no! I know. And then you can't put yourself back in there.
Well, hopefully it'll only take me a minute or two to get back in there. And then I'll have plenty of time to go. So you about ready?
We are
You
ready
do, chat. You're ready to start the timer in 20 minutes? Go.
20 minutes.
That's time.
We are time. Calculator out.
Oh my gosh, that flew by.
When I do them on my own, it always seems like they last forever. When I do them with someone else, it does not feel that long at all.
I know, because I think you're like excited to see what the other person's doing and all that good stuff. Oh man, this scene is going pretty good. I love it when like the first draft of a scene is, I mean, it's never 100% right, you know,
Yeah.
but I like it when it's like at least 75% of the way there. Especially if you've got some like real gems in there you can reuse later. How did you do? Let me calculate my words.
I got 499 words, and I managed to finish chapter 30, and I am now on chapter 31, which is the final chapter.
Nice. Yeah, I think I had almost a similar, maybe slightly slower pace than last time, but I got 462 words. So, and I got to the point where Heather's starting to kind of come around now and actually start, you know, making some headway towards fighting that inner demon, you know.
Yeah.
So, did you want to share anything?
Let's see. I don't even know. Some of it was just rewriting, not actually physically writing. Let's see. It's also terrible. It's not terrible, but
I'm sure it's not terrible. Sometimes, though, it is tricky to, like, I know there were some periods of time where, like, I did a live stream with Audrey Henley, and there was some of the scenes I was working on during that live stream. It just, there was nothing really like happening. I feel like a lot of the best, like, you know, gritty bits that you can like share just like off the bat are like dialogue. You know, dialogue tends to kind of have that punch and that flow. And so like there was a period of time where I was just like describing the city, and I was just like, I really don't know like what I want to share. Or like, you know, all the dialogue was basically just serving the purpose of, you know, progressing the plot. So it wasn't like, wow, that was a really good one-liner there when he was talking about going to the city or whatever.
Yeah, it's mostly just inner thought and stuff that happens. It's not actually a lot of dialogue that I physically wrote right at the end of 30 and right at the beginning of chapter 31.
Is 31 your last chapter?
31 is my last chapter, yeah. So it is my final. It's a brand new chapter as well.
Is it like an epilogue, or is it like a just kind of a wrap up?
It's a wrap up. So it's a different wrap up than the previous draft. So it's a brand new wrap up with a brand new ending, complete ending, which is sort of changed it to a circle ending.
Okay.
So where the protagonist will end up in the same place where the story started, but sort of with a different attitude and different knowledge and being a different person and sort of reflecting on what's happened throughout the story, which is sort of, I suppose, the core of the story and the core of her character arc is sort of set in this one place that she's visiting now at the end of the story and where she was at the beginning. So yeah,
it's always good when your opening image and your closing image are like kind of the same.
Yeah,
that's something that's probably not going to happen in my book, other than just like in terms of general mood, because the first scene in my book is actually the scene where Heather and her husband decide that they're going to divorce. So obviously that's a very like heated scene. And other than that scene, the husband has like no role in the story. So I might end up getting rid of it, but I feel like it's such an interesting way to introduce Heather as a character that I kind of want to leave it.
No, it's good because then you can sort of because she's, starts the story at such a, I suppose, a low point of her life, and then whatever happens throughout the story happens. She's got her highs and lows, and then after the low of, the climax and everything, the ending is, a moment in her life where she's reflecting on, the happiness. However you have ended. So it's sort of like a mirror ending.
Yeah.
That you sort of
the
got
other
going
side
on.
of her when she's happy and self-assured and all that kind of good stuff. So So I would like to share this section where the inner critic is finally like rearing its ugly head and is really just laying into Heather. So the inner critic says, "I'm you when you think there are no consequences. You're so polite and courteous with your family and friends, putting them first and always before yourself. But no one can hear this side of you. I tell it like it is. I'm blunt and truthful, even if the truth hurts. But only you can hear me. So, only you can hear your own truth from my lips. No one else cares about you enough to tell you how much of a failure you are." And so that is like kind of the last thing that the inner critic says, where she's just like, "I'm freaking done with you. Like you're wrong. And also I'm done with you. It's time for you to get out of me and be done."
Yeah. I also feel like there's some truth to it as well. Like our inner critic always, often, or even our subconscious thought does sometimes say the things that we wish we could say.
Right.
About situations, about other people, to other people, things that maybe we are afraid will have consequences if, we do say them. So I think it's nice that it's that focus that the inner critic is saying, where Heather's sort of like, consequences be damned.
Right.
I will say.
And I just really like how the voice is so confident. It seems it genuinely thinks it's doing a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, I'm being truthful even when it hurts. Like, and I think a lot of hurtful things can be kind of spun in a way that they seem positive. And
but it's the truth. Like, that truth is not always a good thing.
Right. That's why there's such a thing as white lies.
But no, I like the dynamic you've got going between them.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be finally done.
Really interesting.
And at this point, like, this is just kind of setting up the climax where both the characters really have to overcome their own personal obstacles to fight for each other. And I think I actually found a pretty good way of doing that. So hopefully it comes out as well as it is in my mind.
I think when one of the antagonists is, self.
Yes.
When you are causing sort of the issues for yourself throughout the story, that is such a, I suppose, a strong thing to focus on.
Which makes me think that I should, because other than serving as like a foil to the main character, I would like to, I think, maybe sprinkle in like once or twice where her inner critic does get the best of her and she is talked out of doing something by herself. So that it really is like, I think a lot of us talk ourselves out of a lot of things with a lot of excuses. And I think that for the most part, it's, I think I can come up with a couple of places where that would actually be pretty good. But yeah.
There's a lot of things you can explore. Talking herself out of it, finally deciding, what would happen if I did go with this advice that my inner critic is saying, and sort of, a fallout that might occur with it, or maybe something does work in her favor. So she's like, oh, maybe the inner critic knows what it's doing, and then sort of having that you know, explode in her face and not work the next time. And
right.
Yeah, it's a lot of different things to explore with it, which I think is a really, really good thing, because then there's so much there for you to work with.
Oh,
and
yeah.
whatever way you want to end up taking her character.
Right. And it does also make it a little bit easier
there
to write, because it is something that I've struggled with, a lot of other people have struggled with. And so, like, you know, it is something that I can just pull from my own inner voice, inner critic, and all that kind of stuff, and just kind of, you know, really make it feel real. But I am probably going to have to go. I can't believe it's been an hour. I cannot believe it has been an hour.
As we both done some work. I've been struggling with chapter 30.
I just saw a question from Tilly's Art here. Have you seen something useful? Oh, that's a good point. So yeah, there is, I think, a couple of times where the inner critic is actually like, the one thing I wanted the inner critic voice to especially have is this kind of meanness to it, but sometimes it does say the truth. Like, you know, like when she first finds out he's a werewolf, and this inner critic is like, yo, like, what? Like, this was first just like a, you know, age gap relationship that you were already not sure, like, how you were going to tell your daughter and all these other people about, and then now this guy's saying, like, he's a werewolf, like, what? Like, run, you know, run really fast away from that, you know. And I think that there are a lot of other places where I could maybe sprinkle that in. So I'm kind of doing this weirdly, because I rewrote the beginning, but the period where Heather and Ian fall in love is actually pretty solid. That part I want to keep in, but I wanted to add a lot more werewolf lore to the end. So I'm in the process of like half revising that and maybe adding like a scene or two there, but then also trying to write the ending. So I'm all over the place.
Yeah, no, I do that.
Maybe we'll try to fit some of that in there. Cause yeah, that seems like that's a pretty good point. It's a pretty good point.
It sounds like at the beginning, you know, the inner critic is not the antagonist. Like, that would be, if someone came up to me and was just like, werewolf, I'd be like, well, no, don't even go there. Don't do it. Are you kidding me? That is best friend advice. And so it's really interesting that the inner critic is then being used as the antagonist.
Right.
Because then I suppose as the story goes on, you can sort of see that the inner critic is not you know, as good as we first come to believe it is.
Yeah, and I think it would be interesting too if, like, at the beginning it tries to discourage her relationship, because she's like, you've already had your heart broken, like, you don't need to have your heart broken again, you know, you have your friends, you have your daughter, you have all this stuff going for you, like, maybe just don't go after this after that. And then, you know, now it's like become this kind of like negative voice that's taking her away from the things that she really wants. That's a good point.
I think, the realization, as Heather sort of realizes that the inner critic is not right for her, the reader is also realizing it.
Right.
Which is really good. They're both sort of like, wait a second, you shouldn't be saying that. That's not true. That's harsh. That's not a nice thing to say.
Right.
And then
I'm gonna make a note. So that's a good idea. This has turned out to be a very fruitful session. Thank you, Tilly. And thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Ember. This was so much fun.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again soon. I know things are kind of stressful or kind of tough because of the time zone difference and stuff. And I'm really not sure how this StreamYard stuff is going to work, because they ended up, in case people don't know, they ended up getting rid of the Hangouts on air. So in order to have a live stream like this, they don't have a seamless interface in YouTube anymore. So the service that we're using right now is actually a free trial, and I don't know how much it costs or anything like that. And so hopefully it's affordable, and or, you know, even if it's something like, you know, $1 if I want to use it for a stream or something, that would be, I think, worthwhile to do every now and again.
I think at the moment it is a free version with up to 6 people, and there's no limits at the moment, they say, I think, on having the free version. I think any other version is like £20 a month or something, which is a bit.
Yeah.
We're not gonna, you know, unless we're using it like once a week.
Yeah.
It's sort of a bit. But for now, it's okay for now, and it works for now, and it's free for now. So.
Right. Well, hopefully, I mean,
what we can.
Unfortunately, we're kind of in like a position of weakness here because we don't really have a choice. You know, like we don't have like a couple other options. We don't have an option that's guaranteed to be free. So I don't know. We'll have to see how it turns out. But I do hope we can do this more because this was really fun. And I'm so glad I got to know more about your story. And I really like that full circle thing. That's whenever you can do that, I think that's always a good move. Especially because it really shows how the character has changed and grown, looking back at where they started.
Yeah. Character arcs, I think one of the important things is that the character goes full circle. So I think sort of, especially if it is a character-driven novel, having the same full circle with the imagery or the plot or the situation is sort of like, you can see how different they are from the beginning, where they started, to the end.
Right.
So that's,
it's very poetic as well.
Yes.
Means you outlined well.
I did not outline at all. I sort of came out with it on the fly, like, oh, I need to change the ending.
Oh man, I don't know if I could
change
do
it to this.
I'm actually thinking about doing
a
video on like combining 2 different like outlining methods, to the Save the Cat and the Snowflake method, because I feel like Save the Cat is really good for like broad strokes plot development. Like, okay, you need to make sure you have this happen at some point around this point in the book, you know, and then this is also like a good plot point, so your character is growing. But then like it's really hard because it goes from like, you know, this one section is supposed to be 25% of the book, but like, how do you fill that in? You know, like, how do you
make that happen? With sort of like not outlines, you know, like plotting methods and stuff, like they'll go, you need the climax, the inciting incident in this part, this percentage needs to go here. It's like, okay, that's great. So that's 6 scenes. But how do you plot all of the in-between bits?
Right.
That is the one thing that I can never find any sort of advice on. And I suppose it does differ from book to book. And it's obviously with what you want, but even some sort of like, you know, try and focus on this aspect at the beginning, and then more move on to this aspect during the middle. And here are types of things that you can put in the middle and sort of tailor it to your plot. Because that's the part I suck at with plotting, is all of the in-between bits.
Yes. Then maybe I'll have to make this video then, because I think I've cracked it a little bit. Maybe I can give some pointers or something, especially considering this is like a good time to do a video like that right before NaNoWriMo.
When everyone's trying to sort everything out and plot an outline and figure out what they need to do.
I had to struggle with that a lot because I was like, you know, my first book I wrote, the first draft I did of this book, I did entirely with the Snowflake method, which is really good for filling in those gaps. But at the same time, like this, you know, novel, I definitely was not hitting those points like with Save the Cat very, very well. So having some kind of like merger of the two, I think, would really like be like the be all end all, you know.
Because I always start with the method. So I will think of the scenes for all of those different points within the plot first. So they are done, they're stuck, they can't be moved. and then I will just add in everything in between.
Right.
And if it doesn't fit, I'll move it somewhere else and sort of change it. So that's how I do it. And I've not used the snowflake method. I think I've used it once. I think I did the sentence and then the paragraph and then the page, and that was about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have such trouble focusing on like detailed tasks like that. I'm not a planner, but here I am trying to be a planner.
Snowflake method is designed to be like you know, spend a whole day to write that first sentence. Which for those that aren't familiar with the snowflake method, it is basically, the premise is that you start with a single 15-word sentence with no names that summarizes like the main theme or arc of your novel. So, you know, like Harry Potter would be like, boy outcast discovers that he has magical powers and there's a whole new world or something like that, you know. And then you take, and so for each step of the snowflake method, you are expanding upon it. So you take that one sentence and you make it into 5 sentences and so on and so forth. But there's a way to kind of like, you know, and generally you're supposed to like, you know, have the end of each sentence, or each sentence is representing an act of your book or something. And then but I do remember the steps are actually like, you know, take a whole, and then the next day turn it into a paragraph and you're done. Like, just, you know, really focus on that paragraph and then you're good. And then, like, you know, you're supposed to take your time with it. I usually don't, because I'm like, if I'm going to focus on this, I just want to like plow through while my mind is still in that headspace. So
yeah, I would do it all in an hour. I think when I did the sentence, paragraph, page, I was just like, I'll just sit there and do it all in an hour, because I'm not going to spend one day writing 15 sentences, because I feel like I haven't done anything.
Right.
But I think I need to figure out and sit down and actually do it properly.
Well, hopefully I can come up with a video that will be helpful.
Yeah.
Hopefully it will be helpful. I don't know.
Must have it.
Alrighty. Well, thanks so much for hosting this. I had a really good time. We'll have to do this again.
Thank you for coming. And for the viewers out there, thank you so much for watching.
Yes, thank you for watching.
Chili's Heart, Nikita, thank you so much for chatting.
Yes. Del Cecil Bruno. Anyway, everybody have a great weekend, and good luck with your novel finishing. Sounds like you're almost there.
With yours. Almost there. Hopefully we'll hit it by the end of tomorrow.
Yes. Ready? Bye.
Bye.